Hey guys, welcome to Boxing Squared for boxing news and views from around the internet. Finally, the WBA is going to do something about two of its so-called champions, making Trevor Bryan and Mahmoud Charr actually fight. So bear in mind, Mahmoud Charr, formerly known as Manuel Charr, has been out of the ring, has not defended this title that he won in November 2017. So 3 years without a title defense. And to put that in context, if you do consider him a champion, I know many of us, that's a bit sort of questionable, but the WBA does. And he is now one of their longest reigning champions of all time. Let that sink in. So this whole farce of him not fighting for 3 years, remember, he was crowned a WBA champion at about the same time Dillian Whyte became the WBC mandatory. And you think what Dillian Whyte has done since 2017, Mahmoud Charr for more than 1,000 days has not fought. How ridiculous is that? So I have just recently covered this off. I marked that anniversary with a few comments in a video on Patreon because I think this is completely ridiculous. But the other side is not much better. Trevor Bryan has been inactive since July 2018. So the WBA, though, is going to make them fight. So at least one of these guys is either going to lose their belt, or if they don't fight, they will be stripped. So the WBA has finally come to its senses and is ensuring that this fight is going to happen. So it was due to occur ahead of the pandemic, but then obviously things changed with COVID-19. There was a purse bid, I believe it was for about $2 million. Mahmoud Charr, I should say, was going to get about $1.5 million of that. So Don King, he was going to be staging the event, Don King being Trevor Bryan's promoter. Bryan, he won his belt July 2018, beating BJ Flores. Hasn't fought since, hasn't looked like fighting since. Mahmoud Charr, he beat Alexander Ustinov. Both these guys got vacant titles. No one called for any of this to be on the line, but it was. So we have these so-called champions, and bear in mind, the WBA has 4 champions. So its proper champion, which is the super champion, which is Anthony Joshua. Then you have the regular champion, which is Mahmoud Charr. You have the gold champion, which is Robert Helenius. And then you have this interim champion in Trevor Bryan, and Bryan is classed as the #1 rated heavyweight in their rankings as a result. So you can see here, the WBA Championship Committee requested contracts for Charr Bryan. So this is from the WBA website. So the press release reads, the heavyweight title fight between champion Mahmoud Charr and the mandatory challenger Trevor Bryan will have to be held by January 29th, 2021, according to a statement issued by the World Boxing Association Championship Committee, signed by Carlos Chavez. The Pioneer organization requested Don King Promotions to send the contract signed by both boxers as soon as possible with details on the fight venue and date. The bidding for this mandatory fight took place last March 2nd in Panama City, and according to the organization's rules, specifically Rule D.11, purse offer contracts, the promoter winning the purse bid shall have all bout contracts properly signed and delivered to the Championship Committee chairman no later than 20 days from the date on which the winning bid is awarded. However, in this case, the pause in boxing due to the pandemic prevented such procedure from being carried out normally, so it was put on hold. Now that most countries have opened their borders and boxing is taking place around the world in a considerable volume, it is a good time to resume the process. Should any of or both fighters, Charr and Bryan, fail to sign the contract, he or they will lose their position as champion and or mandatory challenger. The communication, which was sent to all parties via email, also highlights that the bout shall be conducted under the rules of the WBA with the respective appointment of officials. It also states that the laboratories to be used for anti-doping tests should be certified by VADA/WADA in order to be accepted. The WBA is waiting for a response from Don King Promotions and wishes that the fight can be carried out as arranged in the bidding. Well, I'm glad that the WBA is putting its foot down on this, because I think if they continued to let it drift, which it had been, I don't think this fight was going to be happening. It would have just continued to drift. I mean, we never had all the sort of details in place about broadcasting and other such things. There was talk that it might be on Impact Network. But we'll have to see what actually happens here, because this fight is long overdue. I mean, these two guys have not been a factor in the heavyweight division since they won their titles. And it's an outrage, I believe. I mean, some people will make an argue that, having these trinkets, these meaningless trinkets to some extent, tied up is a good thing. But at the same time, there's opportunities being denied to other fighters who could have these titles to parlay that into something else, a bigger fight or a unification with the main WBA champion and so forth. But Charr and also Bryan have just not been doing the business. And had this been allowed to drift, I'm sure it would have drifted. There seemed to be no willingness or effort to actually reschedule this. And as they noted in that press release, there has been a lot of boxing that's been going on. And of the winner here, well, probably I would pick Trevor Bryan to win this one. Mahmoud Charr's just never really been that good, and I think he will get knocked out. Trevor Bryan, although there's not a lot of footage of him floating around, he is actually, a decent heavyweight. Maybe he's not proven to the point where you go, yeah, he's in the top 20 or something like that. But I do think that he takes care of Mahmoud Charr, who has been parading around on social media for 3 years as a champion, claiming that he is the WBA champion, often talking down other fighters. At different points he was saying that, he wouldn't even consider giving Dillian Whyte a fight. He's, said all manner of sort of silly things. And then ultimately he's sort of turned around on some of those and said, effectively he's been looking for a payday. And that's what it's all been about. But you have to question, why did the WBA put these belts on the line, vacant belts on the line, for the low-level fights that Charr and also Bryan were in back in 2017 and 2018, respectively? It's all about the money. That's all it's about. And this is why it's being forced again. Probably the WBA, its hip pocket is being a little squeezed by the pandemic. They're like, well, we need to clip the ticket on this fight because the fees, they'll be decent. But what do you make of it all? Drop a comment. Loud and often. Hit like, hit subscribe. Follow me on Twitter, boxing_squared. I'm out.